She spent 480 yen on bread and milk for a stranger. 9 months later, that 480 yen bought her whole career back. Small kindness is not small. It is only cheap, which is different. Her name was Amina. She was 31. 6 years on the same ward. Nights mostly geriatrics, which is the part of a hospital nobody photographs. She was good at it, not adequate. Good in 6 years. The woman who ran that ward never once said her name correctly. The old man was 79. He bought bread at a shop by the station at 20 to 6 in the morning. She did not know who he was. That is the point of this story. She thought he was somebody's grandfather in a cheap coat. Stay with me tonight. You will hear the 4 words a ward manager wrote in a log that finished her, and what that old man told a hearing. Before we get into it, tap subscribe. It is free and it helps this channel more than you know. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. I read every one. Now let me take you onto that ward. The shop near his house would not serve him. That is a real thing, and we will get to why. Amina Sese trained in Freetown and requalified in Japan, which took her 4 years and every yen she had. She passed the national examination on the 2nd attempt, in her 3rd language. Do you know how few people do that? Almost nobody does that. On her ward, she was the one who knew things. She knew bed 9 would not eat unless the curtain was open. She knew bed 4's daughter came on Thursdays. She knew that daughter lied about it the rest of the week. She knew which of her patients was going downhill 6 hours before the numbers said so, which is not magic. It is attention, repeated for 6 years. Now here is the specific thing, the named thing. The ward manager was Sister Case. 54. 19 years in that hospital. In February, the hospital held a family information evening. 40-odd relatives in a room, a consultant, a registrar, and 4 nurses standing at the front. Sister Case introduced them one by one, full names, titles, years of service. Then she got to the end of the row, where Amina was standing, and she said 6 words. She said, and one of our support staff. That was it. No name. No title. 6 years of nights. Amina Sesai is a registered nurse. Everybody in that room now believes she carried trays. Hold on to those words. They come back at the end of this, in a room where a woman has to say them again with a recording running. She did not complain. You already know why. Because the complaint goes to the ward manager. In your workplace, it is the same. It has always been the same. Then came the 4th of April. She came off a 13-hour night. 2 admissions and a death at 4 in the morning, and she had not sat down since 8 the night before. She went into the convenience store by the station because there was nothing in her flat. There was an old man at the counter, 79 years old. A gray coat that had been good once, a loaf of bread and a carton of milk on the counter in front of him. His card had been declined, not out of money. The account had been closed by his bank. That happens to certain people in that country, and it happens without a conversation. He tried it again. Same result. The clerk was 19 and loud about it. There were 4 people in the queue, and every one of them made the sound people make. The old man did not argue. That is the part that got her. He just started to put the bread back. Amina Sese stepped around him and put a 500 yen coin on the counter. She said, "Take the milk, sir. It is cold out." Then she picked up her own things and left, because she was going to miss her train, and she did miss it anyway. She thought about it for about 9 minutes. Then she forgot it entirely. That is the part I want you to notice. She did not tell anybody. She did not post it. She did not think of it as a story. To her it was a coin and a cold morning. She had done the same thing twice before that year, and nobody heard about those either. You do not get credit for the ones nobody sees. That is exactly what makes them count. The old man stood outside that shop for a long time afterwards. His name was Shigeru Wada. He had run a house in Osaka for 31 years and handed it to his successor at 72. He had not been refused anything in 40 years, because nobody refused him anything. That is not the same as being able to open a bank account. He had never had one in his life. He had never had insurance. 2 hotels a year turned him away, and he was used to it. What he was not used to was a stranger paying for him and calling him sir. He came back to that shop the next morning at 20 to 6. She was not there. She was not there for 4 days. On the 5th day she was, and he said good morning. That went on for 9 weeks. He was there most mornings after her nights. They talked for 11 minutes at a time, standing up at the window counter. She thought he was a retired carpenter. He had the hands for it. She never asked directly, and he never volunteered. He always bought the same thing: bread, milk, and 1 hot can of coffee that he did not drink. He put that can in her hands every morning for 9 weeks. She came off nights cold. He could not think of another way to do it. She never asked why. She just held it on the train home until the warmth went out of it. That is the whole friendship. A hot can and 11 minutes at a window. He learned that her mother was in Freetown and that the calls cost too much. He learned she had 2 years left on a loan for her requalification. She learned that his wife had been gone 11 years and that he could not sleep past 4. And in the 6th week she noticed his ankle. She noticed the way he was standing. Then she asked him, in the flat voice nurses use, how long the sore on his foot had been there. He said a while. She got him to sit on the step outside and take the shoe off at 6 in the morning on a public street. It was bad. It had been bad for months. She told him he needed to be seen that week, or he would lose the foot. And Shigeru Wada told her, with no drama at all, that no hospital in that city would admit him. She did not believe him, so she brought him to hers. Now, I want to be careful here, because this part is real, and a lot of people watching will not know it. There are people in that country who cannot get a bank account, or a lease, or insurance, or a hospital bed. It follows them for life. It follows them after they retire. Sometimes it is written policy. Often it is just a phone call and a full ward that was empty an hour ago. Amina brought him in on the 9th of June at 7 in the morning. By 9, the admission had been refused. She stood in that corridor and watched a consultant she had worked under for 6 years decline to examine a 79-year-old man's foot. Dr. Oda did not say the real reason. He said the wound was chronic and outpatient, and not their pathway. Then he went to a meeting on the 3rd floor, which is where those men always go. So she did what she had already decided to do somewhere on the stairs. She dressed that wound herself. Not on the ward. In the day room at the end of a corridor, with her own supplies, on her own time, at the end of a night shift. She did it every 3rd day for 5 weeks. Think about what that actually is. 13 hours on your feet. Then 40 minutes on a plastic chair in a day room with a 79-year-old man's foot in your lap, working gently, because it hurt him and he would not say so. Then the train home. Then do it again on Thursday. She got the antibiotics through a clinic doctor she trained with, properly prescribed, properly recorded. She never once touched hospital stock she had not paid for. Not once in 5 weeks. The foot healed. That is not nothing. That foot was 10 days from being taken off. And on the 22nd of July, Sister Case found them in the day room. You already know how this goes. Amina was suspended that morning. She was escorted out of the building in front of the entire day staff, in uniform, at 11 in the morning. Case told anyone who asked that she had brought a gangster onto the ward. The hospital referred her to the nursing council for gross misconduct. That is a hearing, and it can end a career permanently. She was out of work for 4 months. She could not take another nursing job with a referral pending. She cleaned an office building at night. She did not tell her mother. I want you to sit with those 4 months, because the story usually skips them. 6 years of nights, a qualification earned twice, in 2 countries, and she was mopping a lobby at 2 in the morning, in the same city, 11 stops from the ward. She kept her uniform hanging on the back of her door the whole time. Her flatmate asked her once why she did not put it away. She said, "Because I am going back." That is not a speech. That is a woman with a loan and no other plan. But she said it, and she believed it about 60% of the time, which is enough. And here is what she did not do, which tells you who she is. She did not contact that old man. Not once. She had worked out roughly who he was by then, and she wanted absolutely nothing from him. He found her anyway. It took him 9 days. He came to the office building where she was cleaning, at 1 in the morning, alone, 79 years old, with his grandson waiting in the car. He asked her one question. He asked what they had written about him in the file. She told him she did not know. And Shigeru Wada said, "I will find out. Do not stop me." She said, "Do not hurt anybody." He said, "I have not needed to hurt anybody for a very long time." The hearing was held on the 4th of December. A nursing council panel, 5 members, a recording clerk. The hospital sent Sister K's and Dr. Oda. Amina had no lawyer at the start. She had a folder and a statement she had written 11 times. The hospital's case took 40 minutes. Unregistered treatment, reputational damage, an unauthorized person in a clinical area. Keisei read her incident log aloud. In it, on the 9th of June, she had written 4 words about the old man. She had written, "Patient declined treatment offered." That was a lie in a legal document, and she had written it because the truth was worse. The truth was a refusal of admission, and refusals have to be reported. And this hospital had reported none. Amina's representative arrived at the second session. Her fees were paid by a foundation she had never heard of. And at 11 o'clock, the panel called the patient as a witness, because the patient had asked to appear. Shigeru Wada came in with a stick. No entourage, no suits behind him. An old man in a gray coat. The same coat, in fact. The chair asked him to state his relationship to the registrant, and that old man said, "She bought me bread." The clerk asked him to repeat it for the record. He repeated it. Then he opened a folder of his own, 3 refusals of admission in 11 months. 2 other hospitals. Dates, times, names, the hospital's own log for the 9th of June, obtained properly, showing 4 empty beds on the ward at 9 in the morning. And then the last thing in the folder. 31 years of donation records to that hospital's cardiac unit, from a foundation registered in his wife's family name. He had used her family name because his own would have been refused at the desk. 240 million yen. 31 years. Every year without one exception, including the year they turned him away. The chair asked him to confirm he was the source of those funds. He said, "The plaque in their lobby is my wife's mother's name. I am the money." There was a silence in that room that the clerk noted in the transcript as a pause. Then, The chair turned to Dr. Oda and asked him to explain the clinical reasoning for refusing to examine a diabetic foot ulcer in a 79-year-old man. Oda said the word pathway 3 times and then stopped talking. Then they came to Sister Case. Amina's representative had a written complaint from a family member who had been in that room in February. Kase was asked to read her own introduction into the record. 19 years of service, in front of 5 panel members and a recording clerk, and she had to say them out loud again. She said, "And one of our support staff." The chair asked her to state the registrant's full name and registration number. She could not do it from memory. She had to be handed a card. The panel found no misconduct. The referral was dismissed with a finding that the treatment given was appropriate, competent, and better documented than the hospital's own. The hospital was referred onward, which is a thing that almost never happens, for the unreported refusals. Sister Case resigned in March. Dr. Oda took a post somewhere else in April and does not teach anymore. Amina Sese did not go back to that ward. She was offered a senior post at another hospital 11 days after the finding. She took it. She runs a community foot clinic there now, 3 days a week. It exists because she asked for it and would not stop asking. Roughly a third of her patients are people who have been turned away somewhere else. Nobody at that clinic asks anybody what they used to be. The foundation funds it. She knows exactly whose it is now, and she made him sit down and explain the whole thing to her before she would accept 1 yen. Shigeru Wada comes to the clinic on Tuesdays. He is 81 and the foot is fine. He brings bread every single time. He thinks he is being funny. She lets him think it. She has never told him that she keeps the receipts in a tin, all of them, for a reason she cannot explain to anybody. And her mother in Freetown has been told the whole story twice, and cried both times, and mostly asks about the old man now. Here is what this story is really about. You will hear people say that kindness costs nothing. That is not true, and it is a bad way to think about it. Kindness costs 480 yen. Or a missed train, or 5 weeks of your own time at the end of a night shift, when your back already hurts. It is cheap. It is not free. And it is the only test in life you cannot study for. You either pass it at 20 to 6 in the morning, with nobody watching, or you do not. She passed. She did not know she was being tested. Nobody ever does, and the man she was kind to turned out to be the only person in that city with the standing to hand her career back. If you made it this far, tell me one thing in the comments. What was the moment you stopped scrolling? The coin, the day room, or the bread on Tuesdays? And if you know somebody who has been introduced to a room as nothing in particular, send this to them tonight. They need to hear how this one ends.